Welcome. This is the third in our monthly water cooler series titled Law, It's a Business. These go live every first Tuesday of the month for the rest of 2019, starting 12 p.m. Eastern. Myself, Gary Mitchell, I'm a business coach. I've been working with lawyers since 2005. I don't know about you, but when I sign up for a webinar or a podcast, a seminar, I'm there because I'm excited to learn information, and I don't want to be learning about the presenter for half hour. And I have been on those where we're 20 minutes in, and the presenter's still talking about themselves, and it turns out the whole thing is just another sales pitch. Well, that's not the case today. Okay, so let's get right in there. Before we get started, I also want to thank Equa Marketing for sponsoring these Law Water Coolers podcast series. Okay, so today's one is titled Where Are the Profits? So you want to become more profitable. I assume that because you're with us today. First, let me congratulate you from one entrepreneur to another. It takes guts, stamina, persistence, determination, and a lot of hard work. What I intend to do for you today is lay out the key elements of becoming more profitable. I encourage you to get the most out of this by asking questions. Feel free to ask questions at any time. You don't need to wait until the end. Let's dive right in. Profits not only come from a lot of hard work and bringing in more clients, they can be found in becoming more efficient, more productive, and improving workflow and performance. Today, I'm going to cover the following areas. Audits. Where are you today? And what do you do with that information? So audits. The audits I want to cover are time audits for you and your staff. Marketing. What are you doing in your marketing efforts? So let's start with your time. I always advise starting at the top. Take a look at how you spend your own time on a daily basis. What are you doing? Are you doing things only you can do? Or are you doing things that can easily be delegated down? Do the math. You bill out at whatever amount an hour. So if you're spending that time doing anything other than billable work or tasks focused on growth or leadership, you are leaving profits on the table. Those tasks can easily be delegated, and I see this time and time again. It's most common in the startup and early growth stages, but I see it later in the life cycle of a firm as well. Most lawyers think paying someone else to do something is a cost center. Okay, even when it is, my point is you be the lawyer and bill out at your rate, and then hire someone, or if you have that someone already, delegate the task to them. Again, do the math. It's really simple, folks. Your rate is always higher than what you're going to pay someone else to do that work for. So the money in between is profit. Abraham Lincoln once said, and keep in mind it's a dated, sexist version of a quote because I'm keeping it true to what the original quote was. But Abraham Lincoln said, "A man who represents himself has a fool for a client." It's a famous quote, and obviously among lawyers especially. If you agree with that statement, then it follows you would agree with this. A person who tries to fill all roles has a fool for a boss. That's me, Gary Mitchell. You can attribute that one to me. You will never get off the treadmill unless you look ahead, plan ahead, and expect to bring people on. And that leads to the next section. Your people's time, doing a time audit of what your people are doing. Following the same logic about your time and moving through your staff, conduct time audits with your lawyers, paralegals, assistants, and clerks. Again, the same logic I just talked about with you applies. I bet your lawyers are doing work that could easily be, or at least without much direction, be done by a paralegal or clerk. How can I be so certain? Because I see it every day and I've seen it for 15 years. And continuing in that vein, Are your paras doing work that could be done by assistants or reception? One of the biggest areas I see in loss of profitability is not having the right people doing the right things. So, moving on, when to get help. Now, if you're more junior and starting to grow your team, my rule of thumb for that is when you have been consistently at 60% of your own workload capacity, clients and files, it's time to start looking. Why I say that is because at some point you will need to invest your time in onboarding and getting anyone new on your team up to speed. If you hit capacity, you won't have time to do that, and the treadmill continues. Fear has a lot to do with it. Fear that it might be too early to get help. Fear that you will put too much money out and won't have enough coming in. But let's look at my formula a little closer. If you start looking by the time that you're consistently at 60%, that'll give you the luxury of time to find the right people by the time you reach 80% capacity. Because don't forget, remember, you have to put time into investing and training them and onboarding them and then getting them up to speed. You've got to have time to do that. You've got to be thinking ahead. So that gives you that time before you hit capacity, your 100% capacity. Once you hit your 100 capacity, you have no more time. There's no more time for anything, more clients, more training, more anything. So here's an even more important point along this line. And I've seen so many professionals not follow this formula for fear of bringing people on that they end up referring so much business out, they don't see the forest for the trees. Why refer all that work out when you could simply hire someone and grow? More profits being left on the table. It doesn't make sense. So I come to the end of the first section. Are there any questions? Okay, great. Let's talk about your marketing audit. So the next thing I suggest you do is look at how and what you've been doing in the areas of marketing, where you've been spending your money. So that is anything related to lead generation, advertising, sponsorships, events, SEO campaigns, digital marketing. You get the point. What are you getting for your investment? What actions are working best? What things are not working or performing poorly? You really should know if what you're doing is working, if the money you're spending is bringing in more clients. So take the time to do a marketing audit. I do this with all my firm clients, and actually single lawyer clients as well, whether they're solo practice or working at a firm. Are there any questions? Okay, so now the first part of today has been about gathering information, right? Time audits, your staff, and then your marketing audits. Now, I'm always a fan of information, having information ahead of us before we make any decisions, right? Or adjustments. So the second part is now going to be about practice management, HR and retention, and making staff changes based on the information you gathered from the audits in the first section. So this first area we want to look at is practice management. This is practice management, client management, workflow, other team members staying organized and becoming more efficient and productive, docketing more effectively, and billing more regularly. Based on your audits that I talked about in the first section, and now you've gathered that information, sometimes you will want to make adjustments. Sometimes you'll want to start with your junior lawyers. However, in some cases, I've actually started at the top with the managing partner. Each situation will be different. However, practice management is critical, and whether you start at the top or the bottom, looking at it and becoming more effective in practice management will always lead to higher profits. I see it over and over again. As mentioned earlier, it's worth repeating. This is also about who does what, when, and how to ensure the highest productivity and cost effectiveness. In my experience, these things can greatly improve, and I highly advise you to look at them. You will also need top-notch financial and reporting software to ensure you have all the information you need when you need it. There are more profits being left on the table here. Trust me, I see it. Okay, are there any questions at this point? Okay, so let's go into management. So based on what I've relayed so far, you may require some adjustments. If you haven't already done so, my first recommendation is that you hire an experienced office manager or ops person to run the show for you. Again, I've seen in many circumstances, 80% of the time, a paralegal is promoted to office manager. And sometimes this may work, but more often than not, it's because of the loyalty. The paralegal was a great para, so they reward you by making them an office manager. It's like taking a lawyer who builds a great practice and putting them in a leadership position when they've never had any leadership training. Makes about the same amount of sense. What you need is an experienced person with management experience, preferably management education and experience. Right? There are so many considerations that affect your profits and your people. Your technology are your biggest areas for improvement. Do you really want to be overseeing that, HR and IT yourself? No. You want to bring on somebody who knows these key areas like the back of their hand. This allows you to play lawyer and focus on business development and strategy and growing the firm. So HR and retention. Let's assume you have a great office leader, whatever the title or the role is, in place. Now, I just went through the onboarding program development with one of my clients, and this is another critical area to where you could increase your profits: retention. And retention doesn't happen by itself. It costs you far less to invest in keeping the right people and helping with their development than it does to continually lose people and be hiring over and over and over and more retraining and more retraining. And when you introduce a new onboarding program and the other staff who were just previously hired before this program was introduced look a little jealous, it's probably a good idea to reach out to them and ask them, are there any areas they would like a little more training or top up on? Based on what you've heard so far, do you see a need to revamp or rebuild? Depending on where you are in the life cycle of your firm, you may come to a conclusion that some of your staff no longer perform at the level they need to in order for you to grow. And in fact, they may be costing you money rather than helping you to make it. I see this time and time again too. You start out, you treat your people very well, you have a big heart, and you start to grow. The problem is when you grow and become more successful, that brings new challenges. HR being one of the biggest challenges. So I want to talk a little bit about making staff changes. So here are my Coles notes. When and if you need to replace some of your people. First, ensure you're doing your best with delegating and following up. Give your people every chance to succeed. But when it comes apparent, it's not you, it's them. Here's my advice. 1, start looking to recruit first so you have backup. 2, sit down with a specific employee and give them time frame and specific improvements that need to occur. You can say, you value them as an employee, but things have to improve. Well, and number 3, while you are looking for new employees, keep your eye out on the troubled one. If they improve to a level you want them to, you don't need to hire. 4, there is no law that says because you advertised, you have to hire. My point is, I'm just trying to help you have that backup so you're not caught off guard. 5, I say this to cover your blank blank. 6, if you don't look and you have the talk with that talk with the troubled employee and they walk out the door, it's you on the losing end. Don't let that happen. That's why I'm saying always, always, always be on the lookout for amazing staff so that in the event you need to replace them, you've got options. Okay, so we've talked about the information gathering, the audits, time audit, your audit. What are you doing with your time? What are your staff doing with their time? And then a marketing audit. Where and how are you spending your money? Are you getting results? If not, make changes. Where you are getting results, maybe invest more. That's the gathering of the information. The second part of the presentation today was about what do you do with that information in the ways of HR and making adjustments, management. So I hope you have gotten a lot out of today on where are the profits. It's not just about getting more clients. There are many ways within the law firm model that you can increase profits. Are there any final questions today? All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. And again, thank you, Lila, to be my facilitator today. And thank you, Equa Marketing, for sponsoring this Law Water Cooler series entitled Law It's a Business. Our next podcast is August 6th at 12 p.m. I hope to see you there. Here's my contact information, Gary Mitchell. If you'd like to take a deeper dive on where you are and where you are with your firm, I offer a 30-minute consultation, and I'd love to see if I can help you. Have a fantastic day. Thank you. See you on the 6th.